Who do you think should manage their own portfolio?
I think there's a lot.
A lot of people.
It's really interesting. People are like, oh, well, you're a financial. Easy point. I think Jack should.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, oh, you guys are financial advisors. You must think that everybody should hire a financial advisor. No, not the case at all. There are a lot of people out there that are incredibly capable of managing their own portfolio. We actually say for folks that are just starting out, while you're building out in your 20s, 30s, really until your assets hit a critical mass to where complexity enters in and you have $500,000, $600,000 invested. There's so many great resources out there with YouTube channels and blogs and articles, and self-management is not that difficult. And perhaps AI is making it even easier because now you can get real-time feedback on real questions you have. Answers aren't always right, so you want to make sure you kind of understand that. I think that a lot of people can self-manage up to that point. But generally speaking, one of three things happens in your life. Either the gravity of your decisions is so great that you feel uncomfortable making the decision alone, meaning like, okay, if I make a 10% boo-boo on $10,000, it didn't change my life. If I make a 10% boo-boo on $1 million, okay, that's more significant. I don't know what I don't know. My tax return used to be 2 pages long and I had my full, now I've got a different compensation structure. I have a rental property. I have all these other things going on where complexity has happened, or I'm just so busy, stuff is falling to the back burner. Meaning like, I know I'm supposed to rebalance, but I just haven't had time. Or I know I'm supposed to think about my allocation, but I haven't looked at it in 2 or 3 years. I think if any of those three things happen, that's an indication maybe I'm not at the point where I can self-manage. And a lot of times it's not even people who can't do it. It's people who aren't able to do it based on their current station and circumstance in life.
The fourth one I'll throw in there is because we have some pilots that are clients. That I told them in another life, you should have done this for a living. Because I look at it, I mean, they become clients. Well, they prospects first. Their asset allocation, superb.
Their portfolio is 10.
You see they've run all the Monte Carlos. They've done all the tax planning. You're like, you guys are geniuses. You're brilliant. And then, and I'm honest enough when I was doing prospect calls with these guys, but you don't really need us. And then they let me in on, you're right, but I'm worried what happens when I'm dead. And I'm getting old enough that I don't want my wife or my spouse to be concerned about who takes us out. So we've actually had people hire us who are doing a superb job of self-management, but they just wanted we were their insurance policy in case they left and they wanted to make sure their spouse
and their children
had somebody in the background that could, that thought like they did about money.
What should those people be investing in overall?
I mean, we love index funds, low cost, well-diversified, broad index funds. I think if you looked at the portfolios we manage, the lion's share of those are there. Now, there are areas where we do think that inefficiencies exist, where maybe an active type fund might make sense. But for the vast majority, low cost index funds. And the self-managers that are young, that are just starting out, I think things like target retirement index funds are a great solution.
The reason Bo gave the game earlier, we love index funds because we don't talk about this a ton on the show. It's just the market, because of how fast information travels everywhere now, it's hard to think you have knowledge that somebody else doesn't have. So I think just buy the market, that's why when he talks about efficiency, like if you could truly do a trading strategy that generates 100+% guaranteed a year, it would disappear so fast. I mean, it's like because
everybody do.
I mean, we've even seen it because we really did have people present to us the crazy arbitrage that you can do on sports betting, and it's true. You really can make great money for a moment because their systems are so smart that they'll start limiting your bets as soon as they start realizing that you're playing those type of arbitrage trades. The sports betting sites. It's the same way with normal investing too. If you really had the better mousetrap. I think the things.
Yeah. The exact reason of what you're saying is what has prevented me from putting a meaningful amount of my portfolio onto a strategy like selling covered calls. Because every smart person says that the market is efficient and that there is no way to get 185%.
So just buy the index and save yourself the hassle.
It's still, to me, the logic does not make sense. I would love to be presented with an argument aside from just some theory that the market is efficient and you can't get it, with actual math and data suggesting why I could
look at the SPIVA research. All these, if you could be an active manager that is just trouncing the S&P 500, go look at the SPIVA research. If you go to SPIVA, was it SPIVA.org or whatever is, but it shows you managers will beat the S&P, but not consistently.
I think that they probably have. They're probably trading huge amounts of money, which is that's
the other problem.
Anyways,
that's a whole nother problem.
I think that let's discuss this afterwards at dinner, because we're doing dinner afterwards,
Right.
and I would love we'll say if they're right, if I'm right, or if we just agree to disagree.
Jack's gonna cut back in, like tears in his eyes.
Yeah,
I was
lost
wrong,
everything.
guys.
I think it's actually freeing if we tell the general public that it's okay to buy an index fund.
Oh, 100%.
Even if you have millions of dollars, it's okay to buy index funds, because even there's still some sexy exotic stuff you can even do with index funds. Grandma and I had off, conversations, really cool things that are out there down the road if you're trying to get creative with borrowing money and other things. But you can just start your foundation still on just buying the general economy.
And I think a lot of people are surprised to hear that even folks like decamillionaires who have tens of millions of dollars invested, a lot of them invest the money the exact same way as folks who have tens of thousands of dollars. Low cost, well diversified index funds.
Should they be invested the same way?
It depends on the unique circumstance, but I think in a lot of cases, yeah. I know for a lot of the folks that we work with, they're doing the exact same thing. Buying low-cost S&P 500, well-diversified, appropriate cash, appropriate risk metric.
So here's an interesting theory. I think if you have less money, depending on age, obviously, let's just say a young person who has a lot of money, a young person who has little money. The person who has less money should probably be a little bit more aggressive, because to them, you can't really do anything with $10,000.
So what's your definition? Like if you don't think the S&P is aggressive? You think only the Qs? What are you thinking?
Yeah, you could be more tech heavy. You could maybe have a couple stocks that if they end up doing well, more risk capital.
He's going to say like NVIDIA, Hood,
But wouldn't you argue that if you
there's
have
some recency bias to that analysis?
Well, you'd say if someone has $20 million, and you'd say, oh, well, you should have tax-free muni bonds. You should have, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. International index funds, stuff that's more oriented towards capital preservation, because once you have $10 million, you've won the game. There's nothing in your life that, like, for a normal person that you want that you can't afford. But if you have $10,000, you can't raise a family. You can't afford a new car if you need one. Let's say your car breaks. You might have a hard time transporting yourself around the city. You still need to work in order to afford the things that you want. Someone with $10 million does not. So, like, it's reasonable that they would go into capital preservation as opposed to the other person going into more.
But the S&P is not capital preservation. I mean, look, it's not wild out, but it's also not. It's not capital preservation.
I would ask the risk of not being a successful investor is greater for folks with smaller sums of capital or lower incomes. That's why the person who has a smaller income but a lot of time and they're only able to save. I can only save $1,000 a year or $5,000 a year. It matters for that person that $5,000 grows and does well, because they are really, really counting on it for that to be multiplied through compound interest over years and years and years and years. If they say, oh, you know what, I need to swing for the fences, I'm going to put all of it in NVIDIA or an app or fill in the blank, and it doesn't pan out, I would argue that was more
got some behaviorally too, because I have a great friend, came to America. And he starts making good money. Started some businesses here in the United States. Starts making good money, and he asked me how investing works. And I was like, let's dabble into let's get you in the S&P 500. We open up like a Fidelity account, set up a contribution. I kid you not, it was probably 2 months into it. He calls, he sends me a text or calls me, I can't remember, and he's like, you didn't tell me I could lose 12%. And I was like, no, it's part of the process. It's going to be A-okay. Don't worry about it. So I found out. He shut it down. So he only did 2 months. But they were decent sums, though, because he was going to dollar cost average some pretty good chunks, because he has good money and he had some good savings. So these were 2 decent tranches that he put into the market. Fast forward 5 years. We're still good friends. He comes to me and he goes, I think I need to fire this thing back up, because I looked at this account and, Brian, this thing's up like 60%. And I'm like, yeah, this is the way this whole works, is that, you put the money in, but you can't look at it daily. And that's what I worry, if you put something too aggressive for somebody brand new to the money-making process and how the economy works, they get discouraged. And for a new person who doesn't know how economies work, what feels risky in the short term is actually your best advocate and success vehicle for the long term. And what feels safe in the short term is actually detrimental to you in the long term. That's what all these people, I grew up in a household, we didn't have money, but my parents were great savers. really good savers, really disciplined. I get my discipline from my parents, but they did CDs. CDs will gut you with inflation and everything else. If you don't understand the value of actually making your army of dollars work, you're doing the hardest part of the discipline, but never getting the part of letting your money do the work for you.
A really scary truth is just how vulnerable your digital life is, and most people have no idea until it's too late, and then they're stuck spending several hours trying to solve a problem that they did not create. So don't be like my roommate Kevin, because I kid you not, his identity got stolen 2 years ago, and guess who's still paying for it? Me. Because the one thing he still can't recover is his Venmo.
See, the trouble with identity theft and fraud is that it doesn't happen all at once. And by the time you notice, usually the damage is done.
And that's exactly where our sponsor, 𝗪𝗓𝗡, comes in. It catches problems early by keeping an eye on your identity, credit, financial accounts, and online activity altogether. And the best part is that setting it up only takes a few minutes, and then from there, it works quietly in the background all day, every day.
𝗪𝗓𝗡 monitors your credit activity, data breaches, and the dark web using AI-powered detection tools that are able to spot suspicious activity in real time. If it finds something unusual, you get an alert that tells you exactly what happened and the next steps to take.
You can lock your credit, secure all of your accounts, and fight fraud with just one click. If identity theft does occur, 𝗪𝗓𝗡 connects you with US-based specialists to restore your identity and handle the damage with up to $2 million in identity theft insurance.
So head on over to 𝗪𝗓𝗡.com/iced to get 50% off of your first month and see for yourself if your information's actually secure.
Seriously, guys, the peace of mind is worth it. Protect your credit, identity, and online data today. Again, that is 50% off your first month at 𝗪𝗓𝗡.com/iced.